first 100 calls really ought to come from you. And I know a lot of you are using virtual assistants, personal assistants, executive assistants, but you're robbing yourself of a lot of future deals and a lot of capability of leading a team of people who are going to make initial calls for you if you don't go through it yourself. Why do I say 100 calls? Because 100 calls sounds like a ton. It's more than enough to kind of get you'll hear just about everything in those 100 calls. Those 31 levels to the video game, to the app, the rehearsal app, you'll hear all of that within 100 calls. And it doesn't take very long, because some calls are only going to be 5 minutes, others are going to be maybe 25 minutes. But if you average 15 minutes per call, that means you could get through 4 people in an hour, right? So we're only talking about 25 hours or an hour a day for a month. What field can you spend an hour a day for a month and be pretty doggone close to an expert at it? And being an expert at the seller phone call is probably the highest paying job out there. West Coast Ashley, could you practice medicine learning an hour a day for a month? No way. But I bet you do this, you make way more money than you do as a physician. So what I'm trying to say is, let's put these 100 calls in ourselves so that we can lead, coach, counsel the virtual assistants who will make these initial calls for us later on in our career or later on in our tenure as a real estate investor, so that we can coach them better because we know what they've been through and we can help them help us. Okay, so I'm operating from the mindset right now of you making these initial calls, and that's the approach that we're gonna talk about here. Okay, so let's take a look. Now, what I'm gonna do here, this little work of art right here will make you a hell of a lot of money. Now, if I just kind of read it to you, you're not going to understand why. So what I'm going to do is kind of role play it with myself for a second, and then I'm going to explain why we do things the way we do. So that one, you can hear it with a sort of real-time type of flow, and then two, you can understand the why. Like, why are we doing this? Because this is all you really need to do. This is the part you really need to get good at this approach, because it sets the stage, and then you really need to get good at handling the questions that come around that. That's why you got to understand what we're doing. You got to understand the objection handling, which is the rehearsal app. But this approach is what's going to really set the tone. So when you're calling the seller, it's going to go a little something like this. So, hey, this is Joel Sangerman calling. I'm calling about possibly buying your house over there at 234 Cedar Point. Hey, look, I'm not calling to list the house. I want you to know that right away. I'm a buyer. You're probably getting calls from a ton of realtors, but I'm a buyer. Now, look, I only have like a couple minutes here, and I'm not sure what your time schedule is. Is this an okay time to talk about it? Okay, good. So I've learned a little bit about the house already from looking at it online and whatnot, and I gotta tell you, I think it might be the perfect house for what I'm looking for. Now, as I mentioned, I'm gonna buy this without a realtor. There's not gonna be a realtor involved in this. That's gonna save you a commission. So, just keep that in mind. I would like to do a little better on the price that you have. Can you give me an idea how much room you might have on that? Okay. Well, I suppose if needed, to get the deal done, you'd probably be able to go at least a little lower than that, wouldn't you? Okay. Well, that actually does sound like a pretty fair price compared with the other houses I've seen. And I don't really mind paying top dollar like that, as long as it appraises out and as long as it makes sense for me to buy it. But we can figure all that out a little bit later. So you're good with that? Okay, that's what I figured. Now, I want you to know a couple of things. One, I'm not gonna live in the house myself. Okay, I'm buying the house and then I'm going to be reselling the house. And I'm reselling to someone that I'm helping get financed. That's actually what I do for a living, is help people get financed, and they pay me for that. So I don't mind paying you a full price for your house because I'm going to get a premium actually from the person I'm selling it to. Now, I just want to check, you don't really care if I make money selling the house to them for more than I give you, as long as you get paid, right? Okay, yeah, that's what I figured. So look, here's the way this would work so that you could get as much money as possible. I'll pay all your closing costs. I'll buy this house as is. You don't have to be fixing stuff up. I'll close whenever you're ready. Just name a date as early as next week. And most importantly, I can give you full price on this. Now, I'm sure all that sounds really good to you. There is one thing that I require in exchange for that, and it's just that you have a little bit of patience. But I will pay you extra for that patience. What I mean is, I'd make you a monthly payment, or I'd rent it from you for a little while until we get you paid off entirely at that full price that we agreed to. Now, that's fair with you, isn't it? From there, folks, they're going to be a yes, a no, or a maybe. The majority are going to be no, I just want to sell it the normal way. And then I'll show you how we handle that. Some are going to be like, well, what do you mean? I never heard of that, taking monthly payments. What do you mean by that? I got this at about 20% of the people. And then about 10% will be, yeah, man, it just depends on what the terms are. We make a shitload of money here, and we make a boatload of money here. Sorry for cussing. All right, now let me go back through that and explain some things to y'all, okay? Like the why. First of all, when I start up here with, hey, I'm Joel Sangerman, I'm calling about possibly buying the house at 234 Cedar Point. I'm not calling to list this house, I'm a buyer. You have to do that nowadays, folks, because every realtor cockroach, no offense to the realtors on here, because I suggest everyone go get a realtor license, but there's so many of them that it's almost like, where there's a house for sale and a realtor's interested in it, you never see just one cockroach, right? They're all over the place. And you'll know when you start selling houses that you're just going to get, especially when you're selling them by owner and it's clear that it's not listed with the realtor, every realtor in town who's got a little bit of spunk to them is going to call and try to get that listing. So sellers very quickly learn and very quickly get annoyed because they're watching the game, they're cooking dinner, they're spending time with their family, playing with their children, and they got to come in and take this call, and then it's just some D-bag realtor trying to get a listing like the 8th one they got today, right? That's right, Maria, in the chat. You are a different type of realtor. So I want to let them know up front, look, I'm a serious buyer. I'm qualifying myself as a buyer for the house. Now, if you are a realtor, which I recommend you do, we do adjust this a little bit, right? So, hey, look, I'm calling about buying the house. Like I said, my name's Joel Sangerman. I know you're getting a lot of calls from realtors. I actually happen to be one because if you can't beat them, join them. But I'm not looking to get a listing. I'm mostly an investor. And in your case, I'm a buyer. I'm going to be buying this house from you if we can come to terms on it. Okay, but I need to talk to you about it a little bit. You got a few minutes? They will once they find out that you're a buyer, right? Now, so that's why that's the point of really those first 3 lines. I want to check for permission to talk because I don't want to have them when they're in an irritated mood or when they really don't have time to talk. They shouldn't have answered the phone probably, right? But if they'd like me to call them back, I'll call them back when they're in a better place. So you ask for permission. I only have a couple minutes myself. Why do I say that? Well, I've only got a couple because I want them to know that I'm not going to be on the phone for a long time with them, and I want to give myself an out if they're a chatty Cathy. Because some of these people want to just spew a whole bunch of stuff at you that you don't care about yet. And you need to get to the conclusion with people. So it's like, hey, I think I mentioned at the beginning I only have a couple minutes, so I don't mean to rush you, but I got to kind of get through a few things with you, and then we can figure out what the next steps are. Fair? Okay, let me machine gun Kelly a few questions at you. And then you hit them with that. That enables you to be a little bit more rude, right? Because you're telling them you're in somewhat of a hurry. And you can have as long a conversation as you want. You're in control of that now because you set the stage, but I only have a couple minutes myself. Now, why do I say I've learned a little about the house already? Well, that makes people feel a lot more comfortable that you're not just some schmo calling out of the blue, trying to get a wholesale deal, trying to just fish for, a super low price. Hey, I've learned a little bit about the house, and then you kind of throw them a bone, because most people wouldn't say this in a negotiation, right? Because you're showing your cards. You're saying, look, I think this might be the perfect house for what I'm looking for. That makes everybody, no matter what, feel good, because they now know you want it, and you do want it. And I can say that extremely clearly and honestly, because every house is the perfect house for me. Every house, until it isn't. Because there ain't no house in America I won't buy for $1. In other words, it depends on the terms if it ends up being the perfect house. But for now, it is the perfect house. Literally every house. Even if it's a total junker. We could buy it for $1, why not? Now, obviously, there could be some things with like $12 million of IRS liens on a house that's worth, $20,000, but it still might be the perfect house until we prove it otherwise. So we go into every deal with the mindset that this could be the perfect house, because we're about making money on the house. We're not about just adding aesthetics necessarily to our portfolio. Now, importantly, I lead with price. Like I said the other night, why do I lead with price? You see how I say here, considering I'd be buying without a realtor, or, hey, look, I am a realtor, but I'm not looking to get a commission on this. You're not going to pay any commission on selling this to me. If I was just to come in, not have to use a bank, pretty much just use my own funds because I really like the house. What kind of deal could you make me price-wise? You don't got to wait 30 days if you don't want to. We close on this next week as long as it has clear title. What kind of deal could you give me if I was basically bringing cash into the title company, attorney, whatever, and just buying it from you? You're already saving, 10% in cost right off the top, pretty much. So, how low can you go on this? Now, why do I do that? Well, if they do give me a really low price or something that makes sense from what I've looked at for maybe a minute before I called them, or if it sounds like it's a really great price, then I might be taking them up on that and actually buying it for cash. Or just getting it under contract, getting a private lender, getting it under contract, assigning it possibly, because maybe it needs a lot of repairs. But I want to learn what that low price is first without beating them over the head. I don't go throwing an offer at them. Like all these numbnuts out here saying, offer them 50 cents on the dollar so that you can go up to 60 cents. You look like an ass clown when you do that. Sorry for cussing, but you do. People do that to me, and I just think it's funny at this point, but other people will get offended, and it's just not a good look. I'm not saying that you can't do it. If you call 1,000 people, you get a deal. That's why they have call centers doing it for them. But it's not a great way to sustain a business. So what I want to do is understand what my point is here, because this is my point. So pay attention to this. What I'm trying to do is set them on like a cash price, because I have a better chance of getting their best price when they know that there's no hassles, there isn't anything funky, and then I know what they're willing to do. Because if I lead like some of these other numbnutses do with, hey, would you be open to payments? Like if you do that before you get a price, guess what? Your price is going through the roof, because the people who are into it are going to want way more money. So you've got to learn the price first. Let me look at this in the chat. Mark says, it seems you knew the ask price and then ask what they would take given there won't be a realtor commission. Aren't we generally calling No, we're not. We're calling people, well, they haven't listed it on the MLS, but there's for sale by owners, there's for rent by owners, there's expired listings, there are, people who have put a price out there, and we're learning that from them. If you're calling somebody who hasn't contemplated selling it and we don't know the price, then we would change this very slightly, right? Well, hey, look, I'm looking to buy houses and I want to buy more. Your house looks like a target. Is it something you're willing to sell? Okay, well, looking at the neighborhood, I can kind of get a feel for what the neighborhood is worth. What might be the lowest price that you would take on it? So it doesn't really matter. You just slightly adapt. Okay, but this is more for sale by owners that are out there, or could be expired listings. Okay, but if you're, let me look in the chat, make sure that that's clear. Yep, okay. So you would just adjust it a little bit. It's a good question, Mark. You might say, hey, I've been looking at houses. So in this line right here, I've been looking at houses in the neighborhood. It just looks like a perfect house. That's why I had to call you. If you were to sell it, you pretty much need a realtor because they have monopoly on the types of buyers that come in and buy houses for cash or with bank loans. But if you were willing to sell, well, first of all, are you? And if they're like, yes, if the price is right, okay, well, let me know what would be the best price I could get on it if I did come in, with cash. You don't have to wait on a bank or anything like that, because I really like the house. What would be the best you could do? And we learn that, and we don't fight them on it. The reason we do it stands in either case. The reason we do it stands in either case, which is this.